Here. Hey everyone, it's Debbie Potts, and I'm back to talk about all things health and performance and longevity for the athlete and really dialing on the female athlete. And I wanted to bring in Dr. Amie again because she's the thyroid expert. And I know a lot of us athletes, type A driven, ambitious athletes as myself, we tend to get thyroid issues, as I shared with her. My labs I just did and my Dutch test, the hormones are crap. So let's dive into health today. So Dr. Amie, thanks for coming on the show to be our thyroid expert for the female athlete.
And I love that you are talking about this because like you and I were talking about before the show, it's not talked about enough. I think the type A driven females don't get enough love and attention in this space because we automatically go, oh, they're fine. They'll be okay. They know what to do. Yeah. And in the meantime, they're struggling going, wait a minute, I can't do everything that I read on blogs or on Facebook or from these other experts talking to women, but they're not talking to me. I am not like that. I am busy. I am athletic. I train hard. I ... Yeah. And that advice out there doesn't apply to me. So I love that you're doing this.
Well, thank you, because you've been really involved in this area as well when your niche, the thyroid health. But I think it's so important to talk about. As I've been spending all week, I decided I want to make a template, female athlete, fasting, do we eat before, do we eat after, and trying to put all this info together. Yeah. But the challenge is most of these studies that everyone's talking about, like I went through Ben Greenfield top 10 fasting tips, and Dr. Mindy has stuff, and Ben Ziki, and the list goes on, these top experts, which are all amazing results, but they're not often done on men or the cycling female or menopausal female. So I think I want to really dial in a lot more shows this season on this topic, because as you know, what happens as we look at labs, if you're not eating enough, if you're not timing your carbohydrates, and if you're not training and fasting by your menstrual cycle, what happens on labs? We can see it with the thyroid panel and Dutch test, right?
Yep.
So you're competitive. Yeah, the thyroid panel will be good to go into because I just did all my labs myself because I turned 40 plus 10 in a week. So as we've been talking to, like, I'm all into the laser red light therapy in my face, and you were talking on Instagram about eye cream because I put my glass on, but this is the only area I feel aging right here with the hormones. And so I'm all about, like, what can we do now to make sure our second half of life is the best part of our life and really thrive instead of blaming the aging process. Oh, my hormones, menopause, blah, blah, blah. It's a choice. So let's kind of start on just reviewing what you're doing with the thyroid and what have you found working with athletes and the female athlete more so than male probably.
Yeah, definitely. So we know that hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's, affects the female population more than it does the men. The men are not left untouched, but it really is about an 80-20 split of hypothyroidism attacking females more. And then when you add in the mix the female athlete or the driven entrepreneur female, the type A, what you have is usually those women coming to seek help after they've already tried to deal with it a lot themselves, because, they think like, I got this, I got to figure this out. Like this is me. I'm an athlete. I can't feel this way. I can't be 20 pounds heavier. I can't have my hair falling out. It's bullshit. So I'm going to figure this out myself. And then when they've exhausted themselves, very similar to my story, 6 doctors later, 6 misdiagnoses, and you start getting a little bit frustrated when they've exhausted themselves, then they come to us for help. So this is where we see them in that state where they just are not feeling like themselves anymore. They don't even know the person that they're looking at in the mirror. And they're frustrated because in their mind, they're like, I should not be this way. This is not how I was. This is not acceptable. I am not going to accept the answer of I'm just getting older. I'm not going to accept the answer that I just have to learn to deal with it, or even that my labs are normal, quote unquote.
Yeah.
So that's really where they're coming to us. And the problem with that is not only are they type A driven athletes, so they have a little bit of like adrenal stuff going on, that HPA axis has been taxed, But now it's taxed even further because they've dealt with a thyroid problem that's gone undiagnosed or undertreated. And on top of that, they have some cortisol issues because they've been stressed out trying to find answers themselves with no help for who knows how long. So you kind of we have all this coming together, and then hormones start to go awry. So with the athlete, we have to take a different approach and get some quick wins to really get them optimized quickly, or else they're going to be like, nope, see ya, I'm moving on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And we got to get those quick wins.
So when I first had my adrenal exhaustion, air quote, HPA axis dysfunction, which is, well, now we probably call it HPA-T-O.
Yeah.
Or gonads or ovaries.
Gonads, yep.
It's like everything gets dysfunctional. And as FDN practitioners, Reed Davis calls it metabolic chaos, because everything gets broken. And the beginning, when I had my stuff go on in 2013, when obviously something was wrong, and that March, it was a mission. I was trying to get help. I want results now. And I said I went to like 9 different people to get help, practitioners, but I would be that person. Oh, you're not helping me right away. I got a race to do coming up this June. I'm not canceling it. And then move on to the next person. What? You don't know what I'm talking about? Move on to the next one. So it wasn't that those practitioners didn't know anything or help me. It's like, it took me 8 years to figure out it was more me that needed to change. Right. So that's a big part of it, is our lifestyle habits that we need to address. And I call it the holistic method. But what do you find with, if we can dive into carbs, low carb, high carb, keto, there's so much information out there, as we said in the beginning, for athletes and for people non-athletic, just general health, to the benefits of fasting and going low carb. But what have you found working with people with thyroid issues? Because I find that's a big thing. If women fast too much or exercise too much, they'll see signs of low thyroid.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So we know that over-exercising, overtraining in and of itself can tank the thyroid. So that is where it's non-autoimmune, non-Hashimoto's hypothyroidism. And that's just from your own doing. I mean, it can be under eating, over dieting, overtraining, endurance training. That can tank the thyroid, but that can kind of be brought back online with, getting that athlete to pull back a little bit and looking at all the other factors. And then of course, there's the autoimmune component. Autoimmune is Hashimoto's, which we know 95% of hypothyroidism is Hashimoto's. That switch for Hashimoto's, for autoimmune, can be turned on through over exercising, over dieting, over training. So we have that piece in the beginning, like what first started the hypothyroid state in the athlete. And most likely it is from overtraining, overdoing, pushing your body to the max, that either tank the thyroid or turn the autoimmune switch on. Then on top of that, you asked about keto. I love keto and thyroid. I love it, love it, love it. I will battle any opposition from an opponent that says keto's bad for the thyroid. Yeah, okay, if you do 10 grams of carbohydrates every day for a year, your free T3 is probably going to drop a little bit. But guess what? We're going to be treating that anyways. If you're working with somebody knowledgeable, we're going to keep that T3 up while you're doing something very, very beneficial for your body. And even as an athlete, we know, Debbie, you talked about this, you can be keto and be an athlete, even an endurance athlete at the same time. But you have to remember too, that when you have stress on the body, when you go for those long endurance runs, those long endurance rides, your body kind of thinks it's in survival mode. And even if you are doing keto, it's going to hold water. It is going to hold glucose in the muscle. It's going to store glycogen in the muscle, and it's going to get that from whatever you eat. It's going to turn your protein into carbs because you are an endurance athlete. So we know that the body holds 70% more carbohydrates with endurance training. And then when you pair that up with being kind of in survival mode, we can see the thyroid get kind of wonky. So we have to stay on top of our athletes, maybe test a little bit more. Sometimes, tweak things a little bit more often, because they will notice changes in their body faster, which is good, but also they'll notice like bad shifts. They'll notice that water retention. They'll notice the 5-pound weight gain from their body holding on to carbohydrates from their training a lot easier than will the average person.
So you find if they go too low of carbohydrate, they'll kind of get some different responses that way. Say, okay, that's too low of carbs.
Well,
for women,
the opponents to pairing up keto with hypo is that going low carb for an extended period of time will drop your T3. And T3 is that active thyroid hormone that we want in the optimal range to give you a metabolism, give you energy, and keep you pooping and keep you in a good mood. But that T3 level will drop. But those studies are only in long-term low carbohydrate diets. So you're really talking about taking a person and never bringing them out of ketosis, never giving them a sweet potato. And then, yeah, we probably will see the free T3 drop a little bit. Maybe it's because they need to throw in a carb day, or maybe it's because they need a medication change. But that's where the nurturing of that individual person comes in. I'm a full fan of keto and hypo, keto and hashi, because we always bring you out of ketosis. If you're that driven and you're that anal retentive to keep your carbs below 20 every single day without a break, then we're going to force you to have a break. We're going to give you a sweet potato or a gluten-free bun with your burger once in a while. Yeah. And guess what? That is enough to just keep those free T3 levels up. And then any medication or treatment or anything that we're doing for your thyroid actually works, because low carb keeps the inflammation down. So when that inflammation is down, everything works better.
Yeah.
Everything.
So it's almost that, what I keep reading about too is that cycling keto. So you're doing, say, metabolic or keto flexibility, Ben Ezekiel talks about, and Dr. Mindy, and I kind of figured this out naturally. It's just weekends I train longer, and I dieted so much in high school, college on that I want it sustainable. So I don't want to make keto. I hate calling it even keto. It just is another term that's like, I want to eat real food that balances my blood sugar. That for my body ends up being less carbs, plus my NutriSense I've been wearing tells me I'm super carb sensitive. My genetics tell me that, DNA fit. I know for my body, I do better keeping the carbs down, but I'm not, because I dieted so much in my younger years, I can't be so strict on myself anymore because it didn't work actually. Being so strict kind of screwed me up because I was eating too low carb. I was doing way too much fasting, way too much bulletproof coffee. So it's always that Goldilocks effect. So doing like a 5-2-2 or 5-1-1 plan, that it's 5-day intermittent fasting, 1 day kind of the carb refeed, and then 1 day some people suggest trying a OMAD 24 hours, if that's once or 4 times a month, you decide based on your body. But what do you kind of do that with people that are exercising more active than the normal person?
Yeah. So you and I have walked the same walk. I'm the exact same way as you, very, very carb sensitive, insulin resistant, although I keep it under control. And I like, just like you said, I like having it sustainable. I like having my life as well. So I term it, I know Ben has, what does he call it?
Keto flex.
Keto flex, right? So I termed mine keto for the week. And it's just what you said, like on the weekends, go ahead and come up out of ketosis. That's where you can go out to eat and have the sweet potato or even the sweet potato fries. Have a little bit of enjoyment, have the glass of wine or two, and then get back into it through the week. And that alone will keep you sane. It will keep you from feeling deprived, and it will do something physiologically in keeping those T3 levels up. And you'll spring right back into ketosis. So that's not a big deal.
Yeah. Once you're fat adapted, I think it's easy to shift back and forth. And when Ben came out with this, Ezekiel came out with that book, I was like, okay, that's what I've been doing unintentionally. It just is like my body just wanted to do that. And weekends, kind of refeed, not be as strict, live life, still eat healthy because I can't do gluten and all this other stuff. But then Mondays are my rest days. I swim, I do yoga, and I make sure I walk and I lift lighter weights. And So that's kind of my lighter day eating. So I kind of do a OMAD-ish without being 24 hours. I might go like 20 hours, but I listen to my body when I feel I need to eat.
Yep.
So that's kind of my longer fast is Sunday dinner. Whenever I stop eating Sunday, say 4:00 to it's like Monday at 2, something like that. So that's kind of maybe bone broth more that day. And so I think that's good to match for athletes and female athletes, matching your nutrition carb intake with your exercise, so your lighter days, and then dive even deeper. You can match it with your menstrual cycle. Those are menstruating, figure that out. But there's so much, you can dive in so deep there, figure out what works best. So you have balanced hormones.
Yeah. It's all about balance and listening to your body. So that listening to your body aspect will also tie into your question about fasting.
Yeah.
It's all about doing it naturally. And listen, athletes, you're in tune with your body anyways, right? You know your body. We know our body. So when we have a really hard training day, the next morning you might wake up and go, oh man, it's only 7 a.m. and I'm hungry. How the hell am I going to fast until 2 p.m.? Well, you're not. You're going to listen to your body. And that is not going to be a fasting day, because that is your body giving you a signal that you have to listen to, or else you will experience the repercussions of that. So when you have that hunger signal, it's there for a reason. And if you are an athlete, if you are type A, we are past teaching you what is hunger and what isn't, right? So hunger versus routine habit that you stuff your face every morning, right? So you've already made that shift into incorporating in intermittent fasting. Now we have to reel you back and say, maybe you're doing too much intermittent fasting, because yes, it's very, very good for you, but you're overriding your body's own hunger signals. And now you're starting to throw off the HPA axis even further, because fasting is a stress. So you're doing the endurance training, right? You're already a type A personality. Your cortisol is going to tend a little bit higher. If you're an athlete who's insulin resistant like Debbie, then your cortisol is definitely going to be higher, because it's going to want to spike anytime you eat carbohydrates, right? So anytime blood sugar goes up, cortisol goes up, or vice versa. Anytime cortisol goes up, it's going to spike your blood sugar. So we want to keep cortisol in check. And by doing that, something as simple as, and I don't want to use the term intuitive fasting because Will Cole already stole that from me. But how about natural fasting, right? Just do it naturally. If you're hungry, you eat. If you're not hungry and you wake up and you go, yeah, I could have a cup of coffee and I'm good. Then, okay, then that's a day to fast, and that's okay. Because if you override that signal and you fast anyways, and you push up that cortisol, what that's doing to the thyroid, and now we're tying it back, now you're pushing up your reverse T3. Reverse T3 is the anti-thyroid hormone, and it will push that up, and it will put your body back into that survival mode that we talked about when you're overtraining. So now, even over fasting, it will tell your body, hey, you know what? You might want to shut things down. Like, this person seems like they're in the ER and that there's trauma happening to their body. Your body doesn't know that you're up walking around trying to live life. If that reverse T3 goes up, your body is saying, listen, this person does not need to burn fat, doesn't need to feel good, does not need to grow their hair, because we need them to survive. They're dying, but you're not dying. You're walking around trying to get stuff done. So you don't want to push that reverse T3 too high, or you will experience all of those hypothyroid symptoms like weight gain and fatigue and hair loss and constipation and all that. So there's a balance with the fasting as well. Just like there's a balance with the keto, there's a balance with the fasting.
So right on. I mean, I said that I'd started doing this, 10 years ago. Before we knew it was keto, I was doing the fasted workouts and all that, the bulletproof coffee I talked about already. But I always, I'm more of the last couple of years, like, am I fasting too much? Like, I've said this on the show before, that I would, like, Wednesdays before COVID, I trained clients, personal training. I would run, go for a swim. I would train clients afternoon, finally get home at 4:00. I'm like, okay, I can eat now. Then I'm like, wait, is this even good for me? And I started to think of that. But I think we're so type A, triple A, high performing, ambitious individuals and females and female athletes that we so easily push through that. And we don't know where to draw that line. Like, okay, this is not good for me anymore. I should eat something, and not punish yourself and feel guilty that I had a little something to eat before my workout, or I didn't wait till 11 a.m. to break my fast. And I think we get so strict, and everything we hear about now on fasting is so everywhere on the podcast and the blogs and YouTube is so huge that it's like, wait, what if people are doing more than they should? Is this beneficial? Maybe 12, like Ben Greenfield saying, for women, 12 to 15 hours might be plenty. Yeah. And then they might do better eating a little carb, having MCT oil, have a little aminos before workout, and they'll actually burn more fat than rather men do better eating a little something right afterwards, and women don't. So it's just trying to put that information together. But overriding that hunger signal is huge. I think we don't pay attention to that, and then we kind of push through it and get this hormonal dysfunction, imbalance, domino effect.
Yep. I see it all the time. I did it to myself. So I see it all the time as well. You know, that you first hear about the OMAD, 1 meal a day, and you're like, okay, I'm going to do it. And not realizing, like, I was hungry. I'm trying to drink LaCroix bubbly water to keep my hunger down, and not realizing that I was totally overriding. Totally overriding my own signals. And when I stopped doing that, it's amazing how my weight balanced out and stopped doing the like up and down thing. So
yeah, you have to ask yourself, like, am I doing this for weight loss? And wait, I'm not losing any weight. Yeah. What am I doing this for? So I think it's that, you know, deciding, is what you're doing for you working? If you're struggling to burn fat, get your energy, your vibrant self back, and get your body back again, well, maybe you have to do a little assessment, like I've started to do with clients. Let's just do an overhaul. What you're doing now, is it working for you? And let's give some little adjustments and individualize it, because we're all different.
Yep. Yeah.
So
exactly. And it's hard to
go ahead.
Go ahead. I was gonna say, it's hard to tell an athlete to back off too.
Yeah, well, that's why I said they don't come get help until they're really broken. So it's already too late for that. They forgot to even pay attention to that level. And I think I get more male clients than females that want to get help, because females just, I'm fine, I don't need help, I'm just gonna keep going and fit more stuff in my day.
Yeah, exactly. It's so true. Yeah, we're multitaskers. We have that label, so we think that we can drive ourselves into the ground to get everything done.
Yeah. So let's talk about thyroid. So we know what people go to the doctor, and I'll find the link for a podcast we did last year, but the thyroid stimulating hormones, what doctors usually do. And then we have to ask for the full thyroid panel. So we can kind of go over that. If we want to pull up my lovely labs I just did, I can go over those. But what do you think will help people understand the importance of thyroid health and how to get help with it?
Let me give an overview, and then let's definitely look at your labs, because that'll be fun. And then we can kind of approach it from I don't know anything about you, but this is what I'm reading from your labs kind of point of view. So TSH, yes, you go to your doctor, you say, can I have a thyroid test? And they do TSH. That is a pituitary hormone. That is not a thyroid hormone. That is only testing. TSH is thyroid stimulating hormone. So it's the hypothalamus talks to the pituitary talks to your thyroid. And it tells the thyroid to either make more thyroid hormone or chill out. There's enough in the body. You don't have to make any more. We're good. TSH is only one measure. It's a huge range. And we have to look at TSH from an optimal point of view, which is like a target on the side of a barn instead of hitting the barn. Right. So I always use that analogy that came from Mark Hyman as well. So standard lab value ranges are like the side of a barn. If you throw a ball, you're going to hit the barn. But how about if we put a target on the barn? You're less likely to hit it, but that target is where you are going to feel your best. So TSH is one measure, but it's not the whole picture by any means. We have to look at the actual thyroid hormones. So the actual thyroid hormones are free T3. I like the free levels, unbound. Mm-hmm. Free T3 and free T4. Now we can look at the total T3 and total T4. They can be in the mix, but if they're there by themselves, I go, no, we have to get the free levels too, because that's really going to tell us what is ready to be picked up by your cell. So free T3, free T4. We talked about reverse T3 being the anti-thyroid hormone. That goes up in times of stress, trauma. If your doctor tells you, which many of them do, if your doctor tells you, I don't test that, I will only test it if you're in the hospital or in the ER, you go, well, no kidding, it's going to be high if I'm in the hospital or in the ER because it's in response to an injury or trauma or infection. How about we test it now in my healthy state because I want to live life and not act like I'm laying in a hospital bed. So that's reverse T3. And then we test the antibodies, TPO and TGA. There are two. A lot of doctors will only test one. There are two antibodies, and that tells us whether or not you have Hashimoto's. And we test those a couple different times because those can come up as a false negative. So just because you had it tested back in 2010 and your doctor told you you're not Hashi, get them tested again because it could come back positive now, especially with the overtraining and the turning on the switch.
Yeah.
So those are the tests that we like to see to determine thyroid health.
And doctors don't do that. Like I said, my husband just went to the doctor and I give everyone our FDN list of blood chemistry to just ask, just ask for this. And of course he laughed like, thyroid, that's all a myth. You don't need any of that. It's like, screw you. You do need to see this because every male client I'm getting coaching has low thyroid panel. Yeah. And it's not just females, it's the male. And I think it's important for men to get it done and to ask for that full thyroid panel or go through a practitioner expert as yourself and get the full panel done. You can order it on Direct Labs or DHA Labs or there's another bunch of different, all that's the other one I was thinking of. It's easy to do, but so if your doctor doesn't do it, get them ordered yourself and then go work with someone as yourself to really figure out what it means.
Yep.
100%. What to do about it.
100%. I see so many guys now. I think there's the epidemic of low testosterone and high estrogen because of our environment.
They all have that too.
Oh my gosh. And then you always do see some thyroid dysfunction in there when men's testosterones are low because it's prevalent. I mean, we're doing things in our life and lifestyle and the food that we eat that are tanking our hormones and throwing off our thyroid function.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that needs to be addressed too. It's not just what you eat, but what you put on your body, your environmental toxins and all of that. Cause I know someone that was eating out plastic and putting it in a microwave and all that kind of stuff is like, let's look at what products are in your bathroom, your shower, and look at all this stuff, not just what you're eating that impacts your hormones.
Yep. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. And I think that, looking at liver congestion is high because I've found so much information about poor conversion of your inactive thyroid T4 to T3 and the gut dysfunction too, how that impacts our thyroid because they never talk about that either.
Yeah. So T4 has to convert to T3. So when we were talking about the two thyroid hormones earlier, I look at free T4. Most important is free T3 because that's active. T4 is your storage thyroid. So it doesn't actually bind to the cell or do anything. So even if you are listening and you are on thyroid medication right now, most likely you are on a T4 medication, Synthroid, Levo. You might be lucky enough to be on NDT with Armour, NP thyroid. But that still contains T4. And what we have to do is make sure that that T4 converts over to the active thyroid hormone T3. If it doesn't do that, it's converting to reverse T3, the anti-thyroid hormone, the bad guy. So that's why it's very important to check that, to test it. And then if that reverse is elevated above functional standards, then we want to look at the why. So is it high insulin, high estrogen, gut dysfunction? You're running around with too high a cortisol, too low a cortisol. You don't have enough iodine, zinc, magnesium, selenium. There's so many factors that come into play with T4 to T3 conversion that you can see why it gets messed up sometimes because who has a perfect functioning gut these days? None of us do. So yeah. We see a lot of high reverse.
Well, then for athletes too, I was trying to put this in another project is that like research articles on how athletes exercising longer duration, so say over 45 minutes, especially in hot weather, you are probably having a permeable gut, leaky gut. And so there's even more gut dysfunction, even if you might be fit and healthy on the outside, your inside is not usually so great. So looking at leaky gut, I know there's actually S fuels, which is a drink mix athletes can drink for longer duration workouts, like a long bike ride or run, that's glutamine in it and glycine. And there's a reason that they have some gut healing nutrients in there. But for the athlete, I think in their thyroid health, it is kind of looking at that whole picture that we look at, put the missing pieces of the puzzle together to bring everything back up to optimal levels. So it's never just take a thyroid pill and fix it all, right? Or take cortisol or, figure out what it is. So what kind of steps do we do lifestyle wise? You get some information. What are your favorite lifestyle changes as well as nutrition to help optimize our thyroid or rebalance everything, get it functioning at optimal levels?
Okay. So speaking to the athlete and the type A, I get it that when you hear the term meditation, you start freaking out. So Debbie, I don't know if you've ever read Driven by Doug Brackman. If you haven't, all of your listeners should, as should you. Number one, it's going to let you know that there is a genetic component to being type A and to being driven. So it makes you feel like you're not strange to the, because we feel a little bit odd, like we're the oddballs and the rest of the world is looking at us like we're crazy. So there's that genetic explanation, first of all, but then he also goes into how type A's cannot meditate. Because when you sit there and it's like, okay, I know I have to do this. I'm closing my eyes. I'm doing the ohms. I'm listening to an app, and it's your mind is ping ponging. You're like, I got to do this. I got to train. I got to get my food in. I got to get. So it can't be done. So he actually does a guided shooting meditation, like with guns. It's really pretty cool to read and hear about. But I think I was thinking about this actually in hot yoga today. I need to move to meditate. So I am getting in the detoxification benefits of hot yoga. I'm getting in the sweat. I'm getting in the deep breathing to tap into my parasympathetic nervous system. I'm getting the benefits on my adrenals and my cortisol levels while not losing my mind sitting still. So something like a yoga practice, hot yoga, all of that is lowering your cortisol and is taking down that stress response without you losing your mind. Because quite frankly, if I were to meditate, my stress levels would probably go up. So getting into a meditative practice that fits you as a human being, it could be taking a very fast walk because you're still moving, but you're in nature, you're deep breathing. You could be listening to a meditation tape, but still be out moving. So I think lifestyle wise, that's a big one. Getting enough sleep, turning your phone off. I just had a patient today. I said, listen, this is the pot calling the kettle black. I get it, but you got to turn your phone off. How about by 8 p.m.? How about we bring you down from the 10 p.m. shut off down to maybe 7:30 or 8? Is that a good compromise? Because at least you're giving yourself a couple hours of not having blue light in your face and being stressed out, answering people. And you're just actually allowing yourself to chill. Even if your chill is Netflix, you don't have to read a book. You can chill out and watch Netflix too with some blue light blocking glasses. And if that's your thing, that's your downtime. That is your chill time to let your body come down from the day. And so you can actually sleep. And then we can use things to get you to sleep. We can use CBD, we can use melatonin, we can use MAG, we can use all the things to get you to sleep. But you have to do your practices too. We can't just slap on a bunch of supplements and say, here, go have a good night's sleep. So sleep is vitally important. I don't think we talk about it enough. I know I don't on my podcast. So it really does need to be driven into the athlete type A's brain that you are not going to be a better person on 5 hours of sleep. You're going to get more shit done on either side of it, but you're not going to be a better human being on 5 hours of sleep. And something will suffer. Your training is going to suffer. Your work's going to suffer. Your relationships are going to suffer. Your hormones are going to suffer. Eventually, we will see thyroid issues just because of lack of sleep. We will see insulin resistance because of lack of sleep. We will see low testosterone in both male and female because of lack of sleep. So that is such a simple component that we can do for ourselves, but we don't do it because we think we need to get more done.
Yeah, so true. I think, we push the envelope, and I changed my ways a long time ago because of my sleeping was just not feeling good. waking up at 2 a.m. and that monkey mind. And so I prioritized sleep a long time ago, but I have set up kind of sleep hygiene routine. And thanks for COVID changing my whole life schedule. I'm not training clients at 5:30 in the morning. So that caused me to get up at 4:30 and I'd go work out before I train clients at 5:30, 6:30, 7 a.m. Depends on the day. Now it's like, okay, wake up, right? It's 5:30, 6 a.m. and go outside for sunrise exercise. And at night, I make sure I disconnect at like 7 o'clock and put my glasses on and read in bed. And yeah, it is trying to find your own routine that works for your lifestyle and your personality and your family as well.
Yeah.
So let's kind of jump back to the labs the last bit here. So let's look at, I was trying to pull it up. So let me pull it up. You can kind of talk about labs. And let's see. The lab testing that we get for females, why is it so important to kind of look at more than just the thyroid? That you kind of, are you looking at other markers on blood chemistry tests to kind of see any signs? And
Definitely. Well, because listen, we have all the hormones. Guys have estrogen too, but guys just tend to get that little bit of a wonky, like, hey, my testosterone went low, my estrogen went up high a little bit. Females, we're all over the place. We got low progesterone in our 30s. We're looking like an 80-year-old. We have either estrogen dominance or completely tanked estrogen going into an early menopause state or in a PCOS state. Many, many women have low testosterone. Even if you are an endurance athlete, a training athlete, a strength athlete, you could be training your butt off, but you could still have low testosterone. That is a big, big, big thing that I'm seeing a lot with my female population right now. And I have my level of 40 or above with testosterone that I like. Some females they'll come back to me and they'll be like, listen, I need my testosterone at 120. That's where I feel the best. I'm like, okay, well, as long as you're not growing hair and breaking out, then we can keep it there. But you have to at least be above a 40, at least. So yeah, let's look at yours. Okay.
So this is a spreadsheet, just let people know. As an FDN practitioner, we do a blood chemistry analysis. And so we have our functional range. This is the results from the labs that I put in my results, or this column obviously says results. And then I put it into my Excel spreadsheet we use for FDN practitioners in our optimal range. And it will tell me if that's high or low. What I like to do for clients is I kind of cut and paste it into this Word document. And then I go through our cheat notes and say, okay, here's signs and symptoms here of what this might indicate or clues towards, or different information to form an impression what's going on with the whole meat. So we can see thyroid stimulating hormone is high. So I'll let you take it away, anything you see.
So are you on thyroid medication?
I am not. I have not. So that's why I was taking selenium sometimes. I have so that's the thing I want to talk about too, is over supplementing. It's like you can take, everyone's like serpentine and take glycine and now it's inositol. It's like, okay, I'm going to get this and this and this. And you end up just biohacking world, 50 different things in your shelf. So individualizing
you don't want to over supplement, but you're right. I do. So in this instance, when we pair up the total T3 with the free T3, we can see that you're low on both. So that free T3, I like at 3.5 or above in most labs, or we can say in the upper quadrant, but you can see that you are at 2.4. So you are definitely low in your active thyroid hormone. And then we also see it in the total you're low. So you might not be flagged low for your free T3 on a standard lab, although some labs do have a cutoff of 2.5, some have a cutoff of 2.3. So you can see, you would just be like right there, not getting the big L or the red, but for functional medicine, FDN, that's low. That is low. Your T3 uptake, meaning what your cells are grabbing and picking up, that is low. We really like that. I mean, I know your functional range is 28 to 38. I like it 30 or above. Depending on the lab. Again, labs can change the range, but I like it 30% or higher. And then reverse T3. So yes, I used to go by the less than 15 value. But reverse T3, a lot of functional practitioners like it below at 12. So I've kind of changed mine to be, I will accept a 13. Like I would totally accept that if your free T3 was not low, because your free T3 is low and that reverse is starting to bump up a little bit. I want to know why. Why is your free T3 so low and reverse is kind of climbing up a little bit? Scroll back, Debbie, to your free T4. What was that again? That was, okay, so that's low too. So, and again, it's about taking in the full picture. Normally, I wouldn't care about a 1.0 if your free T3 was 3.5 or above, and if your TSH was below a 2. So it's kind of just, it's putting that whole picture together. Now, do you have hypo symptoms?
Just a little bit. I mean, just standard of some, I don't know, not a lot of hair loss, but I don't know what a lot is.
Right.
Like I'm not bald, and my hair does come out in my hairbrush. And then just cold hands when I'm running outside, like this morning was cold outside. So I get cold hands and they don't work.
Okay.
And cold feet, but nothing, just more inability to lose weight is always my issue for my optimal self.
Yep.
It's that people are like, oh, you're not fat. I'm like, well, they're not exactly where I want to be. It's more of a struggle for my body ever to drop weight.
Okay. Okay. So let's scroll down and figure out the why here. So really quickly with antibodies, and you have this highlighted, but here's my rule of thumb. If you have any antibody whatsoever,
that's what I thought.
That is the start of autoimmune. So, excuse me, this lab has it less than 20, but you have 8. So what would happen if those continue to climb? Do you really have to crest 20 before we say, hey, you have some kind of autoimmune thing going on where your body is attacking your thyroid, but you still have 8. I always talk about antibodies in terms of soldiers. You have 8 soldiers that are going out beating up your thyroid. Well, you have 8 plus 1. So you have 9 soldiers that are beating up your thyroid. It doesn't take 20 soldiers to completely beat it up. It's just going to beat it up more slowly over time until your soldiers start to grow. So we're going to keep going, but I'm thinking, okay, we got to do something to calm down this autoimmune component and to get that free T3 up. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of people, which is probably why you do what you do. It's like, a lot of people don't get the right help, because if you saw a doctor, their range is, they'll probably say there's nothing wrong with me.
Yep.
I'm on the edge, which I actually have a doctor appointment just because I haven't been to one forever and we have to pay all this insurance. So I better go see a doctor. And so I was here tomorrow. I'm going to take this list and ask them to run a full panel, just see what they say. But doctors will just probably, if there is low thyroid, like you said, they'll just give a type of thyroid pill that might not address the why. So once again, it ends up being a Band-Aid. So if I want to improve my fat loss, health and performance, longevity, what do I need to do? And in nutritional therapy, we look at, nutrients that the body needs, if it's iodine, selenium, but also, what are your suggestions of gluten? We hear a lot about is for autoimmune issues is a big one. What are your takeaways for nutrition?
Definitely gluten-free, 100%. Now we can see though, as you started to scroll down, so nutritionally gluten-free is a must. Optimal protein intake, keeping your carbohydrates low so that the insulin and the A1C are within range. But for you have low vitamin D and low ferritin. So ferritin, Debbie, is independently related to hair. So when you said hair loss, we got to get your ferritin levels up, because that will bring down the reverse T3. That will help with T4 to T3 conversion. And over here, independent of the thyroid, it's going to help your hair. So ferritin and zinc are big hair loss components that we have to look at. So we got to get your vitamin D up. We got to get your ferritin level up. I
just want to throw in vitamin D. I keep telling people this. I have the VDR genetic SNP from both parents. So I am outside. I moved to San Diego from Seattle last year. I think most people know now. I usually swim at noon in a swimsuit, 11:45 to 1 o'clock. I'm out in the sun every day. Yeah. Look at my vitamin D are low for our optimal ranges, which are 60 to 80. Some people say 70, 90.
Yep.
I think that's a big takeaway that even if you're outside, you should look at your genetics for everything and see what else you need to add in there though. But vitamin D has an influence on our thyroid.
Well, it does because it has an influence. It's a hormone. So vitamin D is a hormone. Vitamin D, it's not a direct influence on our thyroid. I mean, some people will say that it can affect T4 to T3 conversion, but I think it's the other way around. I think low thyroid function can push down vitamin D if you're not taking it consistently. Mm-hmm. And then you will have like compounding symptoms. So you have the fatigue from hypothyroidism. Now you have the fatigue from low vitamin D. You have insulin resistance because your thyroid's off and it's throwing off your insulin and you're eating too many carbs. But we also know that low vitamin D, it puts you at risk for insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes and obesity. So it's kind of like compounding on itself, really. And it could be the hemisphere too. I notice anybody, you cut the United States in half, anybody in the Northern Hemisphere tend to have low vitamin D levels. You got to take it. You have to be consistent and literally take it every single day or else they'll drop.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So I think, not take too much time on this, but I think it's just a great example showing my own blood chemistry that I do all the right things.
Yep.
And that you can still have dysfunction. And if you want to be at your best and optimize your health, lab testing is so essential. And doctors don't do any of this. So we do need to pay out of pocket to get this done. But it goes back to what I always say, fit and healthy from the inside out, rather than just being active and eating low carb and doing fasting. I'm still having low, high out of ranges for a lot of things.
Yep.
And I do eat healthy. And now I'm super strict on gluten. Make sure I have to be that person now. If we eat out, strict gluten, like you have to almost say you have celiac. So they will listen to you because they're like, oh, are you going to die if you have any gluten? Right. But it's so many cross contaminants that I did the Vibrant Wellness Zoomer test as well last month when I did this. And I'm doing kind of my own keto AIP diet because I can't do cow dairy, corn, wheat, gluten, or eggs. And so it gets kind of boring. And that's why I've realized, that's why people do carnivore and do so well because you're not eating anything on that list. But it is figuring out what works for you to really get these numbers up. But the ferritin, look at it, it's 35 and the iron is high. And it's just crazy how you don't know this unless you test. So as we say, as FDN practitioners, test, not guess if you're healthy.
Yep. Exactly. You got to test, not guess. So if you haven't had iodine tested, I would grab that too. Because like you even have in the right-hand column that sometimes the reverse T3 can be high because of iodine. So iodine is very, very important. That's its own podcast in and of itself. But definitely I would make sure that they do your iodine in this next round if you don't have it already, because that could be a component too. And like you said earlier, too much selenium, people pop selenium because they hear it on Dr. Oz or they read it on a Facebook group that it's good for their thyroid. Then they're taking 200 milligrams a day and their selenium goes to the roof. High selenium is as bad as low selenium. It will prevent that T4 to T3 conversion. So you don't want to just start taking thyroid pills that you read about or see in a Facebook ad pop up on your stream, on your news feed, because that's not necessarily what you need. You have to test and you have to know your levels before you start throwing supplements at it.
And that's why I've always said the Goldilocks effect. It's like exercise, nutrition, supplements. More is not better. Less is sometimes more is my philosophy over the years. And I think, the test, not guessing. So I'll just show those last two things, my eosinophils and basophils, if that's how I say. They're really elevated. It's supposed to be 9. So indication of why we run multiple labs and not just do one lab, because this is a clue to my thyroid panel, to the Dutch test, to the food zoomers and a GI test and the organic acids test. So that's why it's really best to do multiple things, because it's like, all right, well, I did the food zoomer, so I know I'm really intolerant to wheat. The zonulin levels were super high, cannot do gluten, and that could be causing this to be high. And if this is high, your liver is going to be congested too, right? So, and then you have, there's this whole domino effect. So that's why it's so many different things to look at. And not to out supplement poor lifestyle habits. Cause I find people like you end up taking 15, 20 supplements, but I'm not doing morning sunrise walk and walking my bare feet and doing that whole sleep hygiene routine.
True.
So just want to share that because I think it's a great just to be honest and authentic that I do everything I'm told and I still have issues and it's always an ongoing project. And especially as I age up, I'm just spent a lot of money on it, but I want to be my best self. So I'm going to invest in my health and I don't, worry about how much money I spend on certain foods or lab testing. That's just where my money goes to. And I'd rather do that for improve my future self.
100%. I'm the same way. Yeah. My money does not go to expensive purses. It goes into my body. It just does. Yeah.
I heard a good example of people complaining about the cost of labs and doing all this stuff. Someone said, well, how many people drop, how much is a new cell phone, new iPhone? Every time a new iPhone comes out, they don't even think twice about dropping a few $1,000s on a phone when they already have one that works. But to buy $2,000 on lab tests, they'll freak out like, oh, I don't have that money. But you can figure out how to buy a new iPhone.
Right.
So that was made me laugh. I'm like, okay, how does our society work? It's so crazy. So
it's crazy.
Anything else you want to add in about, what to do to optimize your thyroid health and how to work with you and what you're doing on your show?
Yeah. So, just be a patient advocate for yourself. And this is what I always tell people this, your body. And especially if you're a listener of Debbie's podcast, your body, right? We know that. So tune into that and don't override those signals. Our bodies were not made by God to walk around and be miserable and fat and tired and depressed and constipated. Like that is not a sign of getting older. That is not just something you need to live with. That is your body giving you a signal that something is wrong. And we can find it. It takes testing and it takes listening to you as a person. And it takes asking you those 4 most important words that you will not hear in conventional medicine. How do you feel? So you have to pair up how a person feels with their labs to get that full picture. And then you can do a proper treatment plan to get you feeling like yourself again relatively quickly, but it takes you listening to your body and calling it out and being a patient advocate saying, this is not right. This is not me. I am not me right now. I don't know who's looking back at me in the mirror. I don't feel like myself. And this is not how I'm going to live the rest of my life. And you keep going and you keep hope, but you keep going until you find that answer. And yes, it might take working with a functional practitioner because, I get this question all the time. I'm sure you do too, Debbie. Do you take insurance? I go, insurance pays for 5 minutes. If you want 5 minutes with me, sure. But that's not how I work. Yeah. I spend time with my patients. Our first consult is 90 minutes. There's no insurance company in the world that would reimburse 90 minutes because they don't care. They want to keep you in the sick system and give you Band-Aids. But if we really want to get you well and get you well for the long term, so you don't need the sick care system down the road, then you might have to invest in yourself now for the long-term gains. Yeah. And, it's all part of it, but God, it is so worth it. I mean, I know how I feel optimized. I see my patients glow from head to toe when they're optimized. That's the way that we're meant to live life. That's life. That's enjoying life. So I guess the takeaway really is listen to your body, listen to yourself, work with somebody who specializes. If you believe it's thyroid, if you believe it's hormones, work with somebody who specializes in that area so we can really figure out what is going on with you and get you on the right path.
Good to say. So this is what I'm taking. I have a printout of the functional labs. I'm taking this sheet to the doctor tomorrow. Test this and then see what they say. But that's what you people need to do to get it covered by insurance is take the big list, comprehensive blood chemistry markers, lipid panels, CBC, iron panel, thyroid panel, and inflammation markers, which I don't know, makes me so mad. My parents, they just turned 80. Their doctor doesn't do insulin and vitamin D. They keep testing my dad's blood for kidney, heart, liver stuff inside every week, but doesn't even do the D. I'm like, what about his liver function? What about the D, the insulin? It's amazing. So you need to ask and be just like you're paying for this. So just tell them what you want done. That's just always makes me mad. But thriving is our goal. You know, we want to have thrive, improve our vitality as we age, and not break ourselves down, burn ourselves out by overtraining and under eating. Because I think there's too much fasting for women going on and too low of carbs too often that we need to refeed day, or if you're doing harder workouts, have more carbs at night that day and figure out that carb timing. So we're going to dial that in a lot more this year on the podcast and really figure out what works for you is different than me and everyone else, but experiments at N=1, experiment, figure out what makes you feel good and intuitive fueling.
Intuitive fueling. I like that.
Intuitive fueling. Fueling and the fasting and your training and people that have hormone cycles. There's a lot to look at, and just doing this one size fits all approach that everyone's talking about is a starting point. The 50 grams of carbs total a day, that could be way low for you. That's training 2-3 times a day and moving around all day. So I think we can't just start there because I see those hormones just drop to the bottom of the barrel.
And I think for athletes too, you know, if timing your carbs around your cycle confuses you, or you're a woman like I see very often who does not have a regular cycle, and you're like, where am I supposed to put the carbs again? What if I don't have a cycle for 6 weeks or 8 weeks? Then I think just what we talked about today, just cycling your carbohydrates, doing more on days where you train like crazy, doing more on the weekends so you can enjoy life with your family or your significant other or friends. Just doing that and not being so overly consumed with syncing the carbs with your cycle and all that, and then you're going crazy. Just do it naturally. Listen to your body when you need more carbs, or when it's a day that you don't want to fast because your body's saying, hey, I'm hungry, then don't fast. Then add in carbs. It's okay. The world is not going to stop, and you will be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So where should people find you? You have a podcast, talk about all this stuff. Let's leave them. I'll put all the links in the show notes.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, my podcast is the Thyroid-Fixer podcast on all platforms. And then you can also find me on my website, dramiehornaman.com. And on there, if you are interested in learning more about working with me, you can book a free discovery call. A member of my team will go over everything. All my services, we have a group program, we have one-on-one, we can get you fixed up. So no matter where you are in your journey, we can find out what exactly is wrong with you and put you on the right path and get you optimized and literally get your life back.
Well, it's so great. And I think that's a lot of it. What we all do is help meet you where you're at. So wherever you're struggling and what you're struggling with, finding that right practitioner, interview them when you have your discovery call. We interview you, you interview us, make sure you're the right personality to work with so you can live your best life and feel your best self and look your best, thrive every day, but really know that it's just taking that time out to take care of yourself. I think a lot of people don't do, and just really know that you can do this and we'll meet you where you're at so it's not overwhelming. I think you're so good at baby steps, not just do it all at once, because that's how we set them up for failure. So a little bit of time and listening to what they need and what like small things they can start working on now to get success is important.
I agree.
So, all right. Thanks so much. We'll hopefully see you soon and see you at some live events next year.
Absolutely. For sure. 100%. I had FOMO. So I had bad FOMO this year. So I will see you at live events next year.
Yeah, for sure.